I'm interested in understanding violence and why violence is happening. And by doing research, we can hopefully figure out, what kind of behaviors might trigger a violence. So we are, for the moment, in a kind of a hotspot where a lot of things are happening on the street. With quite a lot of different conflicts and interactions between people that sometimes escalate into violence and crime. So for me, this is a really interesting spot to study. And in order to study the actual behavior while these conflicts are unfolding, I applied for permission from the Ministry of Public Affairs to use camera footage in order to observe what is actually happening in these incidences. The camera footage obviously gives you a view from above, but it also gives you the possibility to rewind and look over the footage again and again, and then also to look at mechanisms between the different occurrences within each conflict. So you can basically see how does it start, how do people respond, and what's happening next. We have a lot of footage from this spot in the material. So we have one incident that we spent a lot of time analyzing because it's quite complex. We called it the baby powder incident. We always give the conflicts nicknames, and we couldn't understand why the person that initiated the conflict would be so aggressive in the particular situation if it wasn't because he had a crying baby at home that he needed to feed. So there is a person going to the door of the Albert Heijn, and it's just 1 minute maybe after closing time, and he's not allowed in, and he gets very frustrated and very angry in first incidents towards one of the employees. So there is a conflict going on by the door, but it quickly develops. So they run out here on the square, and then you see it's quite a long conflict, and you see a lot of people trying to intervene. And what is interesting about that is that we see generally that people try to intervene on the aggression level of the conflict. So if people first have a verbal argument, then the bystanders would typically also try to speak and try to remove people from each other. But the moment the conflict is intensifying, bystanders are also getting more physical, and you see that development of the intervention quite beautiful here. The way we ensure that the analysis is reliable is by having different researchers basically coding the same thing. So we develop a measurement instrument where we first qualitatively look at all the behaviors that we observe, and then we test the measurement instrument by having two independent researchers basically coding the same thing, and then we see if they agree. So you would think, for instance, hitting someone or aggressive acts, that they would be very simple, but there are obviously many ways of hitting. There are many ways of, and that's what you start realizing. You also start realizing that the distinction between offenders, victims, and bystanders is often quite blurry because people are changing roles also in the conflict. So we find that in 9 out of the 10 conflict situations that we studied, also in Amsterdam, people are very active in intervening and helping.